Hello, hello. Back at the More People, More Problems podcast with myself, Brittany, and my wonderful co host, Chelsea.
Woot
Um,
woot.
whoop, whoop. Today we have a good one. We're going to talk about hybrid headaches. Instead of going through all the little blurb of the usual, you know that stuff. So, ditto on every other episode. And we're going to jump right in. I think Chelsea has a great story. So, we're going to get into hybrid headaches. Tell me about a headache you got, Chelsea, from living the hybrid life.
Yeah, and this is like so recent as of today. I'm talking in our management team today about engaging a little bit more together, getting to know each other more personally. We know that knowing people in proximity leads to liking, possibly boost collaboration and those relationships. So we're all chatting today and come up with a brilliant idea. Hey, let's start doing like a little social every 2 weeks, right? So 30 minutes in the calendar for those who can obviously go. We make an effort for it, but sometimes there's other things that take precedent. Anyways, chatting about this, ideas like, you could do a little icebreaker. It can just be chit chat, no work, none of that. Most of us, almost all of us, are located in Ottawa, like in offices where we can all get to it, but we're not. We're not all located in Ottawa. So, of course, we're talking about this great ideas. Let's have a drink, or we could grab, a bite to eat or whatever. Anyways, and then I'm thinking, oh, but what about so and so who doesn't work and live in Ottawa? And so, how are we going to bring them on into these social activities that are potential options outside of the office, where obviously you're not going to go on a Teams meeting or a Zoom? You know what I mean? So, it's like,
You don't
I
wanna
got to
be
bring,
like the one person
yeah.
that's not there in person. That feels real inclusive.
Yeah, you bring someone on Zoom, like what, to a restaurant or something to do
Yeah.
an after
Just
work
pop
drink or
open the
whatever?
laptop.
Yeah, get a cutout of them or whatever. I don't know. But like, obviously, that doesn't feel great for them because they feel a little bit excluded. But then you also want to go, do we have to forego all of those like options and those potentials to connect as well?
Well, the benefits of being co-located. Like, really, right? Like, those are the true benefits of being co-located is that you can come together in person, that you can have that human connection that's easier to achieve when you're in real life, and to bond and to have some of those creative moments. But once you have a mix, like you said, you gotta make some decisions. So what'd you end up doing?
So we decided we're going to come back on it and discuss it in the next couple of weeks,
So you just push
anyways.
the problem out.
We've pushed the
Great way of
problem
doing it.
aside. No, I do think we'll end up with a mix of, there will be some activities that are in person, and because I honestly genuinely don't think you can just forego that in its entirety. Because I do think that those relationships still need to build, and we have proposed an option that that individual be able to come to Ottawa quarterly, whatever the case may be, and we'll do larger kind of social events and team building and retreats and stuff like that during that time. That all costs money, of course, too. So you have to sacrifice that, the money and the time, in order to do that. But I don't necessarily think that we can completely go one way or 100% go the other way and commit to everything's going to be in a boardroom, everything's going to be on a video call. Because that also just isn't always the vibe, you know?
Well, you're hitting on the core point of, like, the hybrid headaches, which is when you decide to allow for many different experiences, that combine co-located working and distributed working, you then have to make decisions that meet the needs of all those different people because you've hired them and employed them in that regards. So you can do it other ways. You can set it up in a way that sets the expectation from the beginning that, you're going to choose to be in the distributed side, but we're going to have things you can't come. The hard part is I don't think we're kind of there right now.
Mm.
And it actually reminds me, I don't know if you've seen this meme on Instagram, and I'll actually attach it because it's so fucking funny. But I saw it like a week ago, and it's this guy who works in like HR leadership. And essentially he comes on and he's like, it was talking about the ways of working and how it's evolved. And it's like, okay, guys, your health and safety is number one to us. So we're going to go fully remote because we want to kick COVID's butt and we want you to be safe along with it. So all expenses paid, whatever you need, we got it. You're going to work from home. Then it's like the next year, it's like, so remote work is working. We're actually so productive right now. Like, good on us. We're going to do a work from anywhere policy. You live your best life. Then it flips to the next year and it's like, okay, guys, we didn't mean you could work from anywhere. Like some remote beach in Bahamas, like there has to
Yeah.
be rules. Like, come on now. So, no, what we're going to do actually, we're going to do a hybrid work experience. And then it's like the next year, did you really think that work from home was going to last forever? Like,
I know.
seriously, I'm questioning your judgment if you thought so. Now we expect you to come into the office X amount of days. We just invested in this beautiful office space. So come back. The hilarious part is it's like fast forwards to the next year and it's like, so AI has taken over all your jobs.
Yeah,
You no longer
exactly.
have a
We're
job.
screwed.
But like how accurate and hilarious is that transition? And I mean, I'll say for myself, I lived for the first few of those. I mean, COVID hit, and I was the one who told 10,000 employees that we were working from home for safety and care for them. And we knew we were going to do it, but it was going to be a challenge. And then I was the one who said, we've decided on a digital by default work environment, and you're working from wherever. And here's why, and here's what we're going to do. And they haven't gone back to a hybrid from what I know since then. They're really leaning into it. And I mean, obviously, I have no control over that. They're going to do what they're going to do. But I have a lot of opinions and a lot of research that I've done and exposure to things around how do you make decisions? What are the pros and cons? How do you want to think about it? And, what are some probably decisions you need to make as an individual, but also as a leader in a company? Um, and when deciding on the environment and how you want to then build it to get the most out of your employees. Um,
So then question for you,
yeah,
can you have it all? Can you have
I don't think so. I think
hybrid?
you water down. I think you
Yeah,
water it down and shit when you try and do both. That's my
so
hardcore TLDR. I think hybrid approaches are complete bullshit in the stereotypical way of like 2 days in the office, 2 days at home, one flex. Like I just think you're building for two completely different environments and outcomes, and you're always trying to solve for everyone and you're not actually optimizing for anything.
right.
So
So
that's
you yeah, that's a valid opinion. It's probably what a lot of people would agree with. So we've got co-located work and we've got distributed work. So like walk us through maybe some of the pros of each. Like let's talk about that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So for anyone who's like, "What the fuck's the difference? What the heck?" Sorry, I'm trying not to swear. I can't help it. I'm not going to apologize.
Yeah, we're not apologizing.
It's who I am.
Yeah.
But co-located work, you're literally in the same spot. Headquarters, it's a physical location. You are generally seeing your coworkers in person in that co-located environment, making decisions, etc. Distributed, your headquarters. Think about it now. The internet. You are wherever you need to be to do your work and have still the expectations of impact, but you are no longer in one
Anywhere.
place. You are out and about, and the co-located space that you share, I would say, is the internet rather than a physical location. So
Got
that would
it.
be my first distinction. And the second thing I'd actually just say about the two is I don't actually think there's a right or wrong. I think you're trading off different sets of advantages and challenges depending on what you choose. I think when you choose in between, you really got to be intentional about it. And
Mhm.
there's more problems there than either or. Um, and so that's the two of them. Well, sorry, what was the first question you had? I feel like I just talked in a
So
circle.
just
And
some of the pros of
oh,
each, and then we can talk about some of the cons.
yeah. I mean, ultimately, like the biggest pro for a co located environment is it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to build teams, to build culture, to build an environment, to be creative.
To tool
Um,
people too, right?
Yep. Also, we've been doing co-located work environments for decades now, if not a century. And so people know how to do it. They know what the challenges to it are and they're okay with it because they're comfortable with them. And so it's kind of like, all these versions where it's like choose your hard. It's
Mhm.
like when they're like, work out, that's going to be hard. Be fat, that's going to be hard. It's like same thing. It's like whatever the unknown is extra hard, but the known is a little less because you know it. I think co-located is just so built in. Not to mention there's tools, there's technologies, there's skill sets that are just there once again because it's the way we've been doing it for so long.
Right.
But I do think psychological sociology, like if you go into the research, creative work where you need to brainstorm and it helps to have more idea generation and be together is
Yeah.
better done co-located. That's just
Well,
a
like
fact.
the energy in the room, right? You don't
Yeah.
necessarily feel that on a virtual call with someone. There's things, nuances, there's like ideas, there's vibes that you get with being co-located somewhere with individuals.
Yeah.
Um,
Not to
and if
mention
I,
that you're in the same time zone. Like
yeah, that
you're in the same spot, so everyone's going in. There's probably a buffer of variability, but you're really working synchronously. Whereas distributed, a huge shift is that you're async because you're now working with different time zones, different locations. And so the
absolutely.
pro is you're in the same spot at the same time, generally speaking.
And I mean that, like, if we flip over to the distributed for a second on the time zone factor, I mean, I have 2 managers that report to me, one on either side of the country, and I'm somewhere kind of ish in the middle, right? So even when I'm booking meetings, for example, and they're all virtual meetings, I'm like, oh, well, this one's an hour ahead of me. This one's 2 hours behind me. So you imagine like the scheduling
Oh,
nightmare of
yeah.
doing that, like, oh, this is going to fall over their lunch. And of course, I don't want someone to like forego their lunch and like, they need that time, and then this one for this one, oh my gosh, it's going to get really, really close to them going to pick up their kids from school, but it's like a fully reasonable time, for me. So it's hard to do those
Yeah.
trade-offs as well with that
100%.
distributed work.
What you'll notice in a lot when we looked through co-located work versus distributed, a lot of the strengths of co-located becomes a weakness of
Mm,
distributed, and that's just by natural default, and so, once again, you have to figure out what the challenges are and solve in a new way. I would say just going back to co-located, some of the biggest challenges of co-located is you're not actually finding the best talent in the world. You're finding the best talent that is willing to
you're
work in this location.
right. So not necessarily already in that location, but they
Yeah.
have to be willing to come.
Yep.
Right? Are you
Yep.
going to move? Are we
Yep.
going to pay for someone to
Yep.
deploy over as
And
well?
so I think the biggest thing is talent. If you're optimizing for that, that's the biggest challenge of co-located.
Mhm.
Um, Not to mention you might just have your star, your A player in your company go, my wife just got a great opportunity, or my husband just got a great job over here, or someone's sick and I need to relocate, and you lose them because you don't have the flexibility to allow for it.
Mhm.
Or in our case, what we would do often at Shopify was, that's cool, we'll just build an office around you wherever, and then cost. The
We
second
can't all
challenge,
be a Shopify. Oh my
listen,
word.
we did it when we had, like, no money too. It was a sacrifice we were willing to do to retain top talent because that was such a priority and we didn't see any other way at the time. But, in general, I would say a huge challenge of co-located is actual cost itself. It's very
Cost.
expensive for office space, for bringing people together, for all the different things that come along with that. And no
So
one talks about it because it's known. It's just a
mm,
known cost on the balance sheet.
yeah, but I also think no one talks about it because it's more the impact on the employer. And
Yeah,
right now, we're very focused on the impacts on the employee. So, what's at the forefront of hybrid work or remote work or being in office, being co located is mental health. Now,
yeah,
tell me though, before the pandemic happened, yeah, I know. Yeah, we all were annoyed with going into the office and that and 5 days a week, whatever the case may be. But now that we've gone through the pandemic, it's way more at the forefront of, well, this is not good for my mental health. I don't have work life balance. Why should I go in for 2 days a week or for 3 days a week? So, is
you're
this
talking about, like, travel time? Is that what you mean? Like,
traveling, like obviously folks are slipping some things into their days that help to like balance
yeah,
things out at home. And I'll be the first one to agree, obviously, not commute. I've been stuck in traffic lately. Like it's a joke the way it's
yeah,
going back again for Ottawa. Um, Stuck in traffic 45 minutes to an hour in the morning and guaranteed same thing on the way home. I can't pick up my kids. Someone's going to have to pick up the slack for me, probably my husband, or I call your mom a lot of the times,
yeah.
to be honest.
Shout
And
out to Pam.
shout out to Pam. So, like those types of
Yeah.
things, right? We dealt with it before the pandemic. So, is a lot of this the product of the pandemic and what we became used to, and that it no longer became unacceptable? Was it always unacceptable, but just expected? Like, what do you think?
I think that the pandemic forced a change in habits and rituals and everything we knew and behaviors, and expectations that turned just a light on in another room in the house that we never knew was there. And so now there's greater perspective, there's greater knowledge. And for some people who worked really well distributed, they're like, I don't see any difference in my productivity. So they can't understand why they would have to sacrifice these things for them personally when there was a better way. I think that that's once again up to the employer to sell a vision and show the value of whatever you decide. I know a bunch of people who actually hate distributed that got very lonely, that went
Mhm,
through bouts of depression because they were home alone the whole time and they couldn't wait to get back in an office, who quit Shopify because they were like, I don't want to work in a distributed team. And that's fair too. It's a very individual decision that probably has a lot to do with your personal life dynamics and
mhm,
what you can expect. I do agree with you though. I think that in 10 years time, we're going to be thinking back, to the last 5 years and be like, I can't believe people waited and sat in cars for over an hour each way to get to an office, that they really we're socializing, yes, and there was some value of all these great things, but there was also so many drawbacks. Like I think there's a new way of doing it that now we've been awoken to, but I think there's a huge resistance to change. I think there's a huge resistance to building a new way. And so we're just in this messy middle right now
mhm,
of people saying, okay, now we're going to do hybrid. I mean, it's like anything. If you look at growth and development of an individual, but it can be translated to an organization or to, a league of anything, you learn something, you become aware of something, then you start to change and you build new muscles and start to adapt. Then it becomes really scary and hard because you kind of fail at it at times. It's not always working
mhm.
perfectly. You kind of take two steps back. You're like, the old way was more comfortable. You don't
Yep.
go all the way back because you have more knowledge and we're smarter now, but you're not sticking to the new. And that's that messy middle, I call it. And once
Mhm,
you get in there, you have to like stay in it for a bit and then decide, where do I want to go?
mhm,
And I think a lot of organizations are in the messy middle. And over the next few years, they're going to have to decide, which way am I going? Am I fully going co-located? Am I going future like distributed with some adaptations? Like, where is it going to be? My view is that people are going to go more and more distributed with some very intentional moments of coming together, because I don't think there's anything that duplicates that actual moment of being in person.
yeah,
But I think, just as when it was all co-located, people were allowed to work from home if they were sick or, had a surgery or, had to do some extra things, obligations. Like they were afforded that at times. I think now it's going to be like we're afforded the in person at times because here's the great value and we can
mhm,
make sense of it. But I'm getting ahead of us. I do think let's talk about distributed for a second and just the pros and cons of that. Because I think that the biggest advantage of distributed is around talent and around being able to hire, I'll say it very plainly, the best teachers and students in the world and what that can do for your organization. And not all organizations probably need that like top tier talent and exposure to it of what that's going to be like a game changer for the company. But I think a lot do, and it allows for that. I think another opportunity, as we talked about, pro is just the flexibility it allows for employees
mhm.
and what buy-in and loyalty it could give to many employees by saying, I can travel and go see my parents in another province, or I can go do, you know, A, B, or C, whatever I want, and still have a job that I love. There's a way different value prop to that.
So, what if, though, what the employee wants is overtaking what's best for the organization, though?
Well, I think that's why as an organization you have to first decide what you need, what
Mhm,
you're optimizing for, and then see who fits in it. Just like co-located, not everyone's going to want to work co-located. They won't be able to design their life necessarily how they want to design it, and so they might choose not for it. I think that's why the con to co-located is employee flexibility and ability to, design their life however they want. Whereas it's a
Right.
huge pro for distributed, but the company always has to decide first. Like that's
The the company has to decide first, and I wanna go back really quickly on one of your points about being intentional and those moments of engagement, you know,
yeah,
in those periods that will be co-located. I think some of the mistake that we're making sometimes here is, so we've gone all the way one way. We started all in the office, we went all the way remote, and now we're trickling back possibly, a little bit in, a little bit out. But see, one of my big issues with this, and this is one of my biggest hybrid headache, and I kind of managed for this on my own team was, okay, so now we're going away from fully remote and we're going to do some stuff in the office. I didn't go and tell everyone, You have to come in 2 days a week, any day you want, because we're all going to be in on different days. So, like, what's going to be even the point of us? We're not even going to get to see each other, right?
yeah.
So, I think where some
So what did
mistakes
you do? Sorry.
so I said to everyone, I said, we're going to have a meeting. Let's have a little discussion here about, you all have to be in 2 days a week. I have to be in three. So my extra day is whatever. Let's talk about what are some options, and let's go with the majority in terms of, we're all going to be in for the same 2 days a week, every single week. We're all in on the same days. There's exceptions, obviously, to certain situations where someone might need to switch a day here and there, but just exceptions. We all came to the decision that our in office days would be Mondays and would be Wednesdays. We're all expected to report in on Monday and Wednesdays. If we're all in Ottawa, we're all in there together. If I'd have just let everyone run loose and
Yeah,
go, well, for me it's a Tuesday and for me it's a Friday, and what's the whole point?
I know.
We're
I
just
agree.
being remote, separately again in the same city. So it's like there's no engagement there. There's no personal human contact. So I do think that there has to be some rules around. Okay, I get this is difficult. Now we do have, like, we are lucky. We're not
Yeah,
going back 5 days, but I am going to be a little bit intentional about the days we're all going to choose to go in together,
yeah.
and that will
I think
be
that's
in
great.
the telework agreements, right? And so that's what I'm holding you to.
Yeah, I think so. A few thoughts. One, I have no idea why the government chose the decisions they chose around their hybrid working model. I'm sure it was very thought out, and I'm sure there was a lot of intentionality. I don't think you and I are privy. Some person up over way there probably decided. Um, but what I will say is what you're doing is the intentionality of bringing people together and actually utilizing the bringing people
Mhm.
together. So my second thought is you remind me of, Shopify was co-located for 10 years of my 11 years at Shopify, and then it was the final year where we shook everything up. And when I was co-located, I would spend the whole day talking to people, and I would get so much out of that. I would get contact, I would learn through osmosis. I would
Yep.
like there's so many benefits, but I never got any deep work done. I would go
Mm,
home or else I would stay after everyone left for probably 2 to 3 hours and actually work, I would say. And it's not fair to say that now because they're just different types of work, but I
right.
think that that is like something to consider when you're trying to figure out what model you wanna go down again. It's like, I think everyone loved distributed so much during COVID because it finally felt like, oh my gosh, the noise, the distractions that
Yeah.
are there in an office are now gone, and I can get my thoughts down. I can actually get this work done. I can whatever. But then we forgot about, oh, you want to do that, but then you want to talk to people about it. You want to evolve your thinking. You want to like get it to the next level. You want to influence someone over
Yeah.
your idea. And it's easier to do those pieces in person than it is to be like, hey, can I jump on a hangout? Can I do this? So I think your notion of let's do it in person 2 days where you actually can create opportunities for that, but then still do deep work on your own, it is a great compromise given the circumstance that you have.
But I'll be honest, like, so that comment, like, it's interesting me, and I did spend a lot of time, obviously, doing deep, self work or self work. I'm working on myself during the pandemic. No, but like being
Well,
alone,
we all
yeah, and
did.
it's great. But I also do that in the office. I don't spend my whole day, like, I mean, I'll go around, I'll chat with people, check them out in the morning, go have a little chit chat around lunch hour. If I have a question, I can go and talk to them, which is great. And we can sit together for our meetings. But I also set a lot of boundaries even when I'm in the office, because I can't I can't make it look like when we're in the office, it's just to hang, it's just to chat, it's just so that we can all be together. I do still set a lot of boundaries, and I do have set that clear with the team as well. Like, this isn't just like your 8 hours of chilling and just like getting your social time in, and then you load up your at home days with all the work. You should be able to manage and swing on both sides in terms of, yeah, I can close my office door, or you can put your headphones on
Yeah.
and you can do your work. So, like, for me, sometimes that's about setting boundaries, and I get great work done as well at the office, like, or at home.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of like personal skill set and boundaries. I think that's totally fair. I think it's also just like cultures and environments and I mean, 10 years of working co-located, obviously we got heads down work done. It was way easier to do it on my own. Like that's
There's
maybe the
no
better
one
way of
there,
saying.
for
Yeah.
sure. Like, you're not tempted, you're not heading to the kitchen, and
Yeah.
there's 4 people on your way that you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, how was your weekend?"
Yeah.
Or like,
I
"Hey,
used to
wanted
feel
to
like my
talk to."
door was a revolving door. But anyways, okay, let's get into a little bit of if we are in the perspective of having to decide, let's just talk a little bit about that pendulum of like distributed, co-located. What decisions do you have to make in an organization? So this is more probably towards leaders or towards like culture drivers or talent. But I think the first question you really need to ask yourself is what is the ideal like end user of my environment being your employees, like what is the ideal setup? And so going back to your question earlier of, well, there's what employees want, but then there's what the corporation needs. Where do you go?
Mhm,
It
mhm,
always needs to be, what does your company need? You won't have a company if you don't think about that first, then no one will have a job. So let's take a minute and say like, what is the ideal user? And for that question, I really think the key is, what are you optimizing for that's going to drive your company forward and differentiate you from other organizations and have a bigger impact?
mhm.
For Shopify, for many, many years, our differentiator was actually taking very green individuals and growing them and building a really intense culture and environment that was able to do creative work. And so co-located was perfect. It really played to that environment and culture. But then as we scaled and we grew, it stopped serving the same purpose because we had to build little hubs in different areas. And then we had like this environment of, okay, well, we're everywhere. So now we're still dealing with time zones. We're still dealing with, extra things, but we're having everyone fly to Ottawa all the time. Or,
Mhm,
we're trying to get the best talent in the world so we can have the best teachers in the company, but we're not actually achieving it.
mhm.
And so when we made the decision to go distributed, we did it because of COVID, but I actually think it could have been done earlier if we truly said to ourselves, what is going to be the biggest optimization over the next 5 years? And it really was talent. It was finding the best talent in the world that was going to work at this company together to drive it forward. And so optimizing talent was everything. And for that, it then became very simple that a distributed environment was the only way we would achieve that because we were bringing in 80% of all hires in Ottawa were expats. The amount of
Mhm.
money, the amount of visas, the amount of, effort to get it. And we would constantly have a pretty high rejection rate of people that just weren't willing to move.
Right.
And so distributed became that ideal end user of we need people who want to work distributed because we are optimizing for talent. So as an organization, ask yourself, what are you optimizing for? Then what environment is it?
So do you think, though, in because you started off saying it was our ability to grow and to teach and to support these greener individuals, are you saying you shifted to attracting the talent that's already proven talent? Because I would say there's a bit of a trade-off that we're gonna say, obviously, when we go distributed, it becomes a lot harder to support those individuals who
Yeah.
need to learn and to grow and to develop, you know, being in a co-located position, whereas, like, getting
Right.
the top best talent, they're probably already those people. You'll let them
Yeah.
go anywhere. They don't need that.
Yeah. I think you're spot on. And It's probably something I didn't like thinking or saying because it went against like, it was just an evolution of our culture and environment and beliefs, but
Mhm.
we definitely did go towards more experienced, proven people that had done certain things before, and so that naturally went with then, we need to find people that have mastery of their craft instead
Yeah,
of finding people that were early that then we could try and grow. We still expected growth, development, everything, but it
for
was
sure.
a definite shift in who we were
Yeah.
attracting and what we felt we needed as an organization.
Okay, so figure out what the organization is optimizing for and everyone get on the same page then.
Yeah, well, I think make your decision of what that end user is, and then once you kind of figure it who is that end user, I think you need to ask yourself, how are you then gonna build for them? And you have to understand the trade-offs. Like, the one criticism I have with the government or any organization saying, "We're gonna do a hybrid, you're gonna come in a few days, you're gonna be gone," is you start to build for all sides. And so
You
you're not
can't.
actually getting the most out of the one that you need. And a prime example of this actually is, okay, if you picture a co-located environment, um, in an office, your town hall, if you will. If you think about any town, there's a town hall where all the major decisions get made, where you get communicated, where you can ask questions. It's kind of your news source. It's, your source of truth.
Mhm.
In a co-located office and environment, you know where that is. You probably know in your building where you go, where the CEO is going to come and do an AMA or a Q&A or whatever it is, or post announcements. You know how to get it. You know who to walk to. In a
Mhm.
distributed, it becomes the internet, and then it becomes usually a tool that you have, whether it's Teams or whether it's Slack or whether it's email. There's a new one. And so when you decide to do both, generally it clashes because
Mhm.
your example of a team building event is like a perfect example of this. You want to do it in person because that would optimize for a co-located.
Yeah.
But then you need to think about the distributed, and that actually does the opposite effect. And so you're trying to build for both instead of saying, okay, I'm going to swing the pendulum to one. I'm going to build for that. We're going to have the best friggin' environment in that one. We're
Yeah.
going to have some outliers and we're going to make some decisions, but we'll set them up so they know going into it. But we're going to get the best from that. And I don't think you can build the best from that
At
environment
the same
if you're
time
trying to
as the
do
other
both.
one. No,
No.
and I completely agree. We are somewhere awkwardly in the middle trying to do a little bit of everything. And if you think about some of what we're doing in the government is we are still allowing folks to be top talent from across the country, but they have to be near an office. They have to be
That they
close
have
enough
no
to
coworkers at.
that they have
Like,
no coworkers at. So it's like then you almost just question yourself, shouldn't they just work from home 5 days a week versus going into an office 2 or 3 days a week where they don't really know anyone. I know it's nice to say everyone at the department is your colleague or so and so in your directorate or your division, they're your colleagues. It's different. It's different. That's not your immediate colleagues whom you're
mm,
sharing ideas with and creating and or your bosses or your
it
direct
can sometimes feel
reports.
more isolating because you
It
don't know
can.
anyone and you're not actually, having those moments and conversations. I think that a better way of doing it would be to say, okay, well, the best way is to choose one and then, like, have outliers and build for those outliers as is. But if you were to say, "Okay, we're gonna do more distributed," but instead of going into a random office, it's like, "Come to your team once every quarter for 5 days." Or, like, there's other ways back to your comment in the earliest, it's like, go in with intentionality of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then measure it. I
Mhm.
think there's so many decisions that are made at scale that is really hard to do, and there's probably other intentions behind it as well, but I think that they're just not actually solving or getting measured for the true
Yeah.
intentionality of it.
And I agree. You can't do it all and get the maximum impact if you're trying to do both. It's
Yeah.
just the truth.
Well, and it's even like things like tooling, technologies, skill sets, like we talked about in the beginning. So, like, our whole history of ways of working is co-located in most
Mhm.
cases. So, like, technologies, skills, tools are built for that. So, to now go distributed or to even have a chance to learn how to work distributed, you have to learn a whole new skill set. There's like a digital literacy you need to learn. And to
Absolutely.
be able to do that, you need to actually like dive in. I just feel when the hybrid approach comes, how much effort is actually going to solve that? And is there really a chance of getting it right? I think it's going to always be the secondary. I think it will always be not as good. People will decide to do it because it benefits maybe their personal life in so many ways. Um, but I just think you're not getting the best out of your distributed employees if you're still pulling back to the co-located. And I think it's hard. Like, I think it's really, really hard, but I think you got to jump in if you're going to do it. Figure
Mhm.
out what the new hard is, what the challenges come, and then solve for it.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you won't see people in person. It just means that you'll intentionally do that at moments and times. But it will be 90% distributed, let's say 10% in person.
And you never know, we might be having this conversation in 5, 8 years, 10 years, and might say, "Hey, Britt, you predicted it. This is exactly what's ended up happening." Because I think we'll bounce through a few different
Yeah,
scenarios over the
agreed.
years. I don't think you can necessarily just get it right off the bat. Maybe Shopify did. Maybe it did.
Yeah, no, I
Maybe
don't
they're
think they
struggling.
did.
Maybe they're
Yeah,
struggling with certain things, but I think that you're right. It's not gonna ever be a one size fits all approach that's going to work, obviously, for the organization as well as every individual employee and what their particular needs are.
the cool thing is that it like, if I reframe it to the positive, is that the pandemic was like a moment in time for a revolution of the way we work, and there's just so much more awareness to possibilities. Like, even doing this podcast, we started in person, we now do it because of in Arizona, pretty distributed.
Yep,
It still works. Do we like doing it better in person? Yeah.
absolutely.
But do we do it this way so that we can continue on it all year round and still meet the needs of our personal lives? Hell yeah. And so, like, I don't think we would have thought of this 5 years ago. We would have been like, oh, we can't do it
No.
in person. It's over. You know what I mean? Like, there's a cool opportunity that's come with this.
No, absolutely. And you know what the funny thing is too? I was just thinking about the social. The fact that we do the winters where you're predominantly in Arizona. Gary's probably really happy because he's like, "Oh, she's not out all night at Brit's just drinking." Like,
Yeah, I
a
know.
podcast.
Just lead it because the podcast leads into a lot of wine.
The podcast leads into one. Maybe we're going to go swimming and God knows what we're going to do, but
Yeah.
I'll see you in several hours at that point. Now it's a little bit more get the business done, although sometimes Katie and I will stick behind. But, anyways,
Yeah.
um,
Feel free to. Feel
yeah.
free. Okay, what are other I'm curious. I feel like we've talked a lot, but like do you have other like headaches? Like just going back to like what are other funny things about the hybrid world right now that we can shit talk about?
About the hybrid. Well, I mean, you've got the usual, like, so we're in another meeting today, and we're obviously the majority of us are in a boardroom in the office, and then a couple of us are on, well, a couple of my colleagues are on a video call. Technology's not working.
Oh
We
yeah.
can't get the stuff set up, so we're trying to get it on the big screen. The mic's not working. So what
Yeah.
we end up having to do, we're literally all sitting at a boardroom table, all with our own individual laptops open, and like turning on and off the sound as each of us wants to talk. We're listening through each other's laptops and like, oh, quick, turn yours off. There's an echo happening. So it's like, it's one of those things, eh? It's just like, and then sometimes if the folks on the phone can't barely hear you and they're
I
like,
know.
what? And like, that must be so frustrating too. Like
It is.
laughing in a colo in an office with a bunch of your colleagues and they can't hear the little joke or something.
So that reminds me of one of the ones I had where I was like one of 3 that were distributed and the other majority was in one spot, and I kept unmuting to chat and, like, add in, and, like, no one like, when everyone's in person, you read body language, you know when
Yeah.
to back off, whatever. When you're distributed, especially when you're, like, the only
No
one,
idea.
you're trying and you're like, "Okay, finally, I just gotta be, like, rude and jump in." Well, they weren't stopping, and I was like, "These assholes, like, why are they just, like, purposely talking over me?" I jump on the next meeting I was going to, and I realized my mic doesn't work. Like, it
Oh,
was me.
no.
But I was so mad at them. I was
Yeah.
like, "You guys are assholes. Like, why are you doing this?" And then I realized it's my fault. Um, but I do think actually that point, I think if you're gonna be distributed, I think it's really, really important to have really good tool setup, being like laptop, microphone, earphones, lighting, like, you wanna create a moment where you
You
can
feel like
actually
you're together.
yeah. Yeah.
And you don't wanna put barriers in front of people, like, when they can't even hear properly because, like, the actual equipment is not sufficient, and then, like, for me, like, I like to have a good time when we're having meetings. I like to crack a little joke, something you do with your body language, or you, like, kinda snicker or something. They can't hear that, that sucks for them. They must be like, "What are y'all laughing about?"
Yeah.
how much is that? That's just crap, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think actually you guys' decision to all go on laptops was actually a good one. It'd be even better if you like separated slightly by different rooms. But then once again, it's like you're actually forcing a distributed model in a co-located space. What's the point of
Isn't
that?
that
Like
crazy?
that's the messiness of hybrid is that you're trying to solve for both. And I mean, caveat being we're gonna come in hot with big opinions, Chelsea and I,
Yeah,
but I would actually love people to shed light on the other way or what you like, or, we're missing an important piece of information that you're like,
probably.
Brit, like you're just forgetting about this aspect. Like this is why it works. I would love that. I would love to learn more and challenge my views on this. And I know you would too, Chelsea. So
Yeah.
please comment, reach out. I'd be so curious to hear.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think that we've even touched the surface on a lot of the good that can come from hybrid work as well, and a lot of the flexibilities it allows. I think we've poo-pooed quite a few things, but I think
What
we
are
both
the good though? What would be like the really good of hybrid working? Tell me, because I don't see it.
the really good of hybrid work. Well, I mean, I do enjoy going in the office. I do enjoy going in the office. There are headaches, but I've gotten really used to going back in the office. I do my 3 days a week, but I really cherish like the 2 days. If I'm lucky, I'll get my 2 days, or it's one that I work from home, because then it's a little bit more like my attire is a little bit more relaxed,
Yeah.
there's things I can support the kids, drop them off, pick them up, obviously. um for me, like, if I'm just looking at an individual perspective, like, that works well for me. But when you try to mesh up, does my hybrid in terms of the way I do home or at work, is that the same for someone else? And does our hybrid kind of match up, like, even?
Yeah,
You know
you're
what I mean?
spot on.
Does it even make sense? But like,
No, no, you make so much sense because what you're making me think about is hybrid is a subjective term that now we're generalizing across all working environments that are requiring people to work from home and be in person. That we like, oh, now we know what it is. Whereas there's a million ways you can do hybrid.
mhm,
And there is so many that are probably done really, really right. I'm probably a little influenced by all my friends and loved ones that are in a maybe not great hybrid situation that doesn't seem very thought out.
mhm,
Um, and so I agree. I think there's a really great way of doing it that allows for very tangible, valuable, impactful in person while
yeah,
also getting the distributed benefits. But even when you do that, I think you have to swing your pendulum to one side and then build around it. I don't think you can kind of sit in the middle and say, we're going to get everything of both. That's,
you won't.
in my opinion, unachievable.
Unachievable. Agree with you on that. But any closing thoughts before we head into wine time?
I think just for the talent leaders out there and like leaders actually in general, really consider about your team and decisions, your company. Once again, what's going to be the best solution for me? What am I going to optimize? And what does that end user look like? And then how do I build towards that? Knowing that there's going to be a very distinct set of challenges and opportunities that come with it
Mhm.
that might be different from a previous way, but just really go in with intentionality. And with that, let's drink some wine.
Let's do it
And we're back with the wine.
with the
Cheers, my
wine.
girl.
Boop. Cheers.
Mm, okay. I'm doing the wine review today. I have
Do
a
it.
white. I'll give it into the camera. It's called where I have no idea how to say the first word. Wairau
Wirral.
River. W
Wirral
A
River.
I R A U.
Say that a bunch of times, right? Wirral River. Wirral River.
Yeah, I can't even say it just on a good day. You think I
Yeah.
can say it multiple times?
No.
Like, no,
No,
Britneyism.
definitely not.
Anyways, it's got a lot of words. Gold Wine Awards, Tasting Panel Selection, Wine Orbit, 93 points from New
Ooh,
Zealand. Wine's been in business since 1978.
Oh,
And I love a
thriving.
New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. So when I was at Costco recently, I picked up a variety of them to try them out, and I'm enjoying this. It's very green apple. Why are you laughing as I talk?
Because pulled the Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh, I said it wrong. How do you say it?
Katie, you're
Savin.
gonna need to mute your computer there, hon.
Oh, Katie in the background. It's wine time. We'll allow it.
Yeah, she's
Um,
like I can just hear myself like echoing in the back. Yeah, a little Sauvignon Blanc. I thought we determined it is Sauvignon Blanc.
whatever. Who says that?
What? Can
No
anyone
one
put a
says it.
comment in? Do you call it Sauvignon Blanc or Sauvignon Blanc? Sorry, I didn't mean to mock you. Go ahead. Tell us
Well, I
about
could
the
tell
Costco.
because as I was sipping, you're giggling, you're cackling over there.
I wasn't
Um,
cackling. I was silently laughing in my head.
and it was a cackle. So it's a great wine, green apple,
Mhm.
tart, crisp. It's good. I would give it. Do we give it out of 10 or 5? It's been so long.
We
It's out
usually
of
do
10.
10,
Okay, yeah, I'd give it a 7.
a 7. I
It's also 15 bucks American, so I'd buy it again for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, Costco, you can't go wrong. Obviously, they have the best, all those
Yeah, they really
awards and
do.
whatnot. I can't say I can't give that same rating. I'm drinking a different wine. Obviously, I don't have access to the Costco America wines
I know
here,
she's
and
very jelly.
I didn't know she was coming in with this one. So I just have a different wine. It's lovely. It's not crisp and appley, but it tastes nice. And
Yeah.
I found it in Brittany's lounge room. So
Oh, right in the cabinet behind you?
no, 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 no. We actually went in the pool room.
Oh, that one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where her
There
stockpile
was
is.
a little
Don't give
ball in
away
there.
our secrets. We just have enough parties in Ottawa that there's always a stockpile, you know? You just gotta be prepared to have a good time.
We just didn't have time to hit up the old LCBO, and we said, like, you know what, our girl Britt, she's got our backs with this.
I take photos of all of it so that when we're gone all winter, I know what the pile goes down
We're not
or
the ones you need to worry about. All right.
well, listen, sounds like you are. You just confessed. Funny. So this house that we got here has like a little wine cellar that the old owners like built. It's like a hobby wine cellar, but it's pretty cool.
Did you
And so
keep
we
it?
got some, yeah, it was like the one room we didn't touch.
Oh,
And we got someone to come and like service it. And I was a little because I hadn't been on for 2 years, right? So I
oh,
was a little
serious?
worried, like, oh, is it gonna be like shit? Is it broken? The guy comes and he's like, clearly this is a hobby one. Like it's not built to professional grade. Da, da, da. And I was like, okay. He's like, but it works great. So da, da, da. He's like, it's perfect. So we started putting some wines in there, and that's
What's
fun.
the difference
But
between a hobby wine cellar and a
it's essentially just homemade.
so like yeah, okay, but you just keep wine cold. So like does it matter?
Well, it's the temperature and the humidity in there,
Okay.
I think, that needs to be perfect. So there's all these things. I
The
don't know.
cork needs to be at the perfect,
Temperature.
humidity here, like moistness so it doesn't
Yeah,
crumble.
I guess so. I
Yeah.
guess. Is that
Fill
it?
that fill that wine cellar with them Costco wines and
Oh, it's
Safeway.
exactly what I'm doing. Are you kidding me?
Get
You
all the
get like
goods.
a 12 pack, you bring it home.
When
There
you
you
decide
go.
what you like, I mean, it's like every time I go in there, Katie was trying to give me an Oyster Bay, and I'm not
You're not a
too
fan.
too much of a fan of the Oyster Bay, mostly because it's a Sauv Blanc, so it's like not really my thing, right? So like she found another one. I was like, oh, I'll take that one.
It's probably a more expensive one.
I don't know. Look it up, Katie. She said it's Spanish. It's not the Cote
Oh.
de Rose. We've already done that one enough.
Okay. It's probably the one that Jason brought over. Anywho, how's your week going? Is it cold there in Ottawa? Is it
Yeah,
cold and snowy and all the
yeah.
things?
We have had some snow, like a couple of days, like 2-degree weather, super cold overnight, obviously. So it's like full on take out your winter hats, gloves, like all of that drama. Boots. Well, I'm not
Yeah.
wearing boots yet, but cold. Yeah. Halloween was cold. Trick or treating I was like a little numb when I got back after 2 hours outside. The kids are
2
running
hours.
like bandits, obviously. So they're hot. They're great. I'm just like, I'm freezing. Just holding bags of candy.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did they come home and just devour all the candy? Do you let what's your policy? Are they
Ugh.
allowed to eat as much as they want the
Oh,
first night, or do you divvy it up and,
God,
like
no. No, no. We put everything in one big bucket, and I kid you not, it's a Rubbermaid bucket, and not like the standard size, like the jumbo
Mike back, I can't hear
size.
you.
Oh, sorry.
She's showing me, folks, she's showing me
I'm
how big
sh-
it is.
I'm showing how big the Rubbermaid bucket is, like not a standard, a big one, right? We put all the candies in there. Yeah, the kids like on the route, they'll eat a few little bits while they're running around. Like they're always starving apparently, so they need to eat some candy. And then
You
when we
should
get
pull out an
home,
apple next time and be like, "Don't worry, I brought snacks."
yeah, here you go. Or you're fine with this. But yeah, so they have some. They're allowed to have a little bit at home, but pretty much like by 8:30, everything's shut down. Carter usually want to have a little bag of chips, and that he'll like be sucking on a bag of chips for an hour, and then I have to force him to go brush his teeth. But no, I don't let them go nuts, and they really only are allowed to eat like two candies a day.
Oh, that's good.
Like I'll send a little bit in their lunch. They'll ask for one or two pieces when they get home from school, and then like after dinner,
What do you
there's
do? That's gonna take, like, a full year to eat 1 to 2 a day.
listen, their mom helps out quite a
Yeah.
bit, and I got
So
called
you're like,
out.
you guys have 2, meanwhile, you're having, like, 5 to 10 a
I
day.
got called out. I tell you, I packed my bag November 1st, and of course, I wanted to get some of the good stuff that I like. Got some Starburst Fave Reds, got some Reese's cups and everything. A couple little bags of chips. I leave my bag on the counter as I'm running up to get something upstairs. I come down and all my stash has been removed from my bag and is sitting on the table beside it. I'm like, what the fuck? And then Chloe's like, yeah, like this is our candy. And I was like, excuse you? Like, you
Yeah.
don't go in my bag, first off. And I put just as much effort into collecting this candy as you did. So you best believe I'm going to be packing every day I
I'm
go
gonna
to
be
work.
packing it all.
If I'm like, peckish, I'm having some.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
eat away,
anyways.
mama.
Oh, yeah,
Eat away.
I eat loads of it, that's my problem. I just love the candy.
I know, you are such a sweet fan.
I just
I'm
like
a carb fan. Give me chips any day. Oh gosh, love it, but, like,
I
candy,
do
not like, once in a while, but it's just not my go-to craving.
so, like, not as much on the candy side, like, more chocolate for me, but I love a little chocolate and then eating a little bag of chips at the same time, like,
Yeah.
oh, so good. Yes, we
Alright,
have a lot
we'll
of
enjoy.
candy. I'll get rid of it before Christmas, and then we'll go back into fucking chocolate phase.
I know, with Christmas chocolates. Yeah, I did a little Halloween party, we dressed up, I was a witch, it
Yeah.
was good. I had a big black wig of, like, hair down to my ass, and
Ooh.
everyone's like, "You look so good with dark hair," and I was like, "I do not." I looked crazy. I did not
You didn't look
enjoy it.
bad, it's just too dark for you.
Yeah, well, listen, Katie over there said, "I loved it on your face," and I was like, "Well,
Oh,
you're
really?
lying." Yeah. Other
She's a
people did
liar.
too, I was like, "Liars."
She's a known liar.
I love it. But yeah, had a good time. We had friends up here in Arizona, really good friends, and we had a blast with them. We had so much fun, but it was
Mhm.
like busy. Like I felt
Yeah,
like every day was just like we had something. And so when they were leaving, it was like sad to say goodbye, but it was like, cool, I'm gonna go sleep for
fuck off.
many days. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's
just
gonna be
like
good.
so what'd you guys do? Golf, like,
We golfed a
Halloween,
bit.
whatever?
Didn't golf actually that much. We did the par three twice. And we went to downtown, went shopping and had lunch down there and did that so they could see. We went to a football game.
Oh,
We gosh, what else did we do? I feel like we did so many other things, but yeah, just, like, busy, like, each day.
clearly
Oh,
had
we went
fun.
out to dinner and had a night out, which was hilarious. Went to this place called the Rusty Spur. It's a
Ooh,
country bar, and it's just like a dive bar. It's like a little mini Nashville in downtown Scottsdale.
ooh, cute.
Hilarious. Great singer. They had
You
these
line
seats right at the
dance?
bar. No, because I didn't have anyone to do it with, you know?
Oh,
I know. Bring us back to Nashville
yeah. Mm.
or
Oh,
Arizona.
Arizona,
So
we did it in Arizona last time.
we've also done it in Nashville. The
Yeah, yeah.
funniest thing was when you were in Arizona and we went to do it, I taught Chelsea this whole dance at home before we went out. We like practiced it. We tried to get it on video. She nailed it. But then we got to the venue and it was this like country bar, line dancing, everything. We go to do it. Turns out I taught her the wrong dance. It was like half
Yeah,
right, half wrong. I was
yeah.
so it's like me and directions in general. I just
Well,
think I'm going the right way and I never am.
It made sense when you taught it to me, and to be honest, I'm not someone who can pick up like, I'm not coordinated enough and, like, clever enough in, like, those dance moves to pick it up on the spot, so, like, I just look like a fucking hot mess. I mean, I was trying. You were actually, like, kind of, like, getting all the little dances she was doing. I was like, "No, I can't do this shit."
I
If I
love
don't
dancing.
fucking know it and haven't practiced it, like, 15 times before, it's not happening for me.
Yeah. Well, I tried to help. It's just didn't help when I didn't do the right one. Anyway,
Whatever. Still fun.
whatever.
Anyways, well, cheers to that. Line dancing and
Cheers, cheers.
friends
Get
and everything.
Stay warm, and I will see you soon. Soon we're going to New Orleans, the 3 of us. We gotta get lots of photos for the gram.
Woo! Can't wait. Cheers.
Cheers, love ya. See you soon. Bye.